You're in charge now. NMLS ID 1492187. Equal housing lender.
This portion of the
A neighbor's choice. I'm your host, your neighbor, David Gronowski. So glad to be with you live again across FM and AM, podcast and video stream, where we're going to have another exciting journey together, learning about the news, learning about world events from a perspective that's going to equip you with positivity, with action, with direction, with a vision, right? Because you need a vision if you're going to move somewhere. That was something that some folks have been noticing, is that one of the reasons why the Taliban was able to defeat the Western, intrusion into their community for 20 years now is because they were unified by a common vision. We don't have a common vision except for this nihilistic, decadent attack against human nature and nature itself that is the sign and the emblematic brand of neoliberal elites. They don't have anything they fight for besides their own decadence. They don't have any. That's not something that unites soldiers. You think soldiers are excited to fight on behalf of, Charles Schwab and those kind of folks? Do you think oh yeah, let's go ahead and, that's not what motivates them to fight. They're not excited about, hey, let's go help them learn how to become third wave French postmodern feminists over there. They're there, that's not what unites them, but that's what unites folks on the other side. They're united by, hey, we're tired of this culture, this cultural rot that we see all over the West, and we don't want it destroying our culture. So we're going to preserve what is our local traditions, and we're not going to allow them to, win. They don't know what we want. They don't know, what we're all about over here. And so that's kind of why the situation turned out as it did. And so the question is, are we going to learn from this moment? Or are we going to double down on the stupidity of going along with DC's nonsense? Will we? Or will we just keep on saying, oh, let's try it again. Let's try Marco Rubio, the kind of people that want these perpetual wars. Let's try, Rick Scott, all these people, they all want perpetual war. Meanwhile, the Taliban probably imagines themselves as the Ewoks in Return of the Jedi, that they defeated the big empire without any technological parity or anything, without any money, but they were united in defending their homeland. That's something you can't pay people to imitate. And meanwhile, we have an agency like the TSA that continues to pat down kids and grandmas while our government allies with Al-Qaeda in places like Syria and Yemen and so forth. Doug Stafford, who works for Rand Paul, the senator, says, so in case you were wondering, the TSA are a bunch of child-groping creeps who threatened to call police and escort us out of the airport because we did not want them to grope our 13-year-old daughter for some sort of imagined anomaly from the screening machine. So meanwhile, we're patted down like cattle, grandmas are, while we make alliances with Al-Qaeda in certain fronts, and while we give Taliban all the equipment, the latest technology. I mean, it is a stupid farce of a government. It's a farce. I mean, my goodness, you can't make this up. You can't make this silliness up, can you? And that's the problem with our situation, They were talking about the Biden press conference, and Jordan Schachel said one corporate press stenographer changed up his pre-approved question. Biden literally answered, I thought the question was, before attempting to answer the new question. He says, insane clown regime stuff. And that's the problem, is that we've got a clown media, a sycophantic, unreliable, completely discredited media that doesn't want to do anything in approaching ethical journalism. And that's the kind of thing that dominates the discourse for so many people. Half the country says that we should have government forcibly root out misinformation, which is, just another word for stuff I disagree with, stuff that makes me have to think critically, All the misinformation I see is coming from these garbage institutions that think they're God's gift to mankind. Of course, they wouldn't use the word mankind because that's a trigger word for them. So that's the problem, is that we have a kind of DC that's out of they're out of touch. They have no credibility. Their big pharma and big military industrial complex stuff continues to fall apart. And the whole world's laughing at them. Now the question is, will they learn from that and be chastened? And can we fire them all? Or are we going to have to put up with these clowns for decades to come on both sides of the aisle? Because that's what the party is. It's a uni party. That's the question. ATR.org says Biden and Pelosi set to impose tax hikes on small businesses. These people they want to double down on aggressive, vicious violence against their own citizens. They hate freedom. They hate people that defy their little arrogant, narcissistic, stupid decrees. You look at Newsom. Larry Elder points out who's running against them. Boy, Larry Elder, doesn't he has the McWoke crowd running scared. I mean, California is their Mecca. That's their Mecca. That's the place where they've had their monopoly with their dubious fascist-style political policies to do all their experimentation and all their attempts to attack human nature itself, to attack freedom, to attack liberty, to attack families. They got the lock on that place over there, and they have had all the opportunity to do all their disgusting garbage policies unabated. And yet Larry Elder is looking like he could really upset and defeat this clown Newsom. But Newsom says after recall, the Yahoo says, Newsom to require COVID vaccine proof or negative test at smaller indoor events, statewide. And a commenter, Ricky, says, if Newsom beats the recall, he's going to punish the people of California for putting him through it. Because that's what vindictive, petty little fascist punks like Newsom do. Intellectually midwit, they have nothing to offer. Just a big, blabbering mouth full of stupid, putrid lies. He's a fascist punk. And of course, his little lapdog trash Pravda media over there is doing everything they can to attack Larry Elder. Because Larry Elder is an intelligent, sophisticated mind with passion, with conviction, with beliefs. And Newsom is just a low-resolution thinker with nothing to offer but special interests loot. He gives special interests loot, and he grips his citizens and he squeezes them like they're his product to get the extraction of wealth dallied up to the special interests. And people of all backgrounds are sick and tired of cowards like him, tyrants like him. They're tired of putting up with people like that. And if it's not now, because California's got all kinds of dubious election little gimmicks and the media is running all these scams to mislead the voters. If it's not now, at some point, California is going to break free from its monopoly of leftism. Because people are sick and tired of it. The only people that like this stuff are the neoliberal white elitists. And they don't want to have kids because they think the planet's going to destroy. So they don't really have anything. The only way they can continue their stupid, idiotic ideology is to, continue their monopoly on education and media. And their media monopoly is falling apart because nobody's watching their trash as much as they used to. Their entertainment monopolies are falling apart. Nobody watches their stuff, their late night stuff. Their movies are tanking. Their shows are derivative and boring. People are turning off traditional television. And then the only thing else they have to propagate their stupid attack against human nature is education monopoly. And that's starting to crater because of their overreach during the time of COVID. They don't want to have kids, mostly the white liberals. So their ideas are going to go extinct if we all, the vast majority of the rest of us who do not like their stupid, vicious, fascist, tyrannical policies, if we just keep pushing back against their stuff and uniting together. That's why we're going to unite Hispanics, blacks, Asians, whites, all together around the principles of Jesus. And they will stand the test of time, and they will defeat the principles, the no principles of this neoliberal, decadent, McWoke left. They don't have kids. They don't want to have kids. They think the end of the world's going to happen any second. So it's kind of like a nihilistic death cult, if you will. That's why they have no problem doing organ retrieval of babies that are still alive in University of Pittsburgh, according to the sources coming out saying that's what's going on. We have to further investigate it. They don't have a problem with that. Because if you believe there's no meaning, there's no purpose, there's no nothing, then anything's up for grabs. And that makes you a miserable person. So then the way you deal with your misery is by trying to hurt other people so you feel better about yourself, and then creating narratives in your head that justify your vicious hatred of other people's liberty. That's why they tell themselves stupid lies like natural immunity has no effect against this disease, or has very little. They have no basis for that. They just say it because they want to feel good about hurting people who don't want to do their little groupthink rituals. It's all going to fall apart because they hate life so much they don't want to have kids, most of them. And the rest of us who still have some affinity to various degrees in the principles that Christianity brought to the world, and that means all races, are going to unite around those principles which are sustainable and which will stand the test of time, and we will defeat this era that has produced such stupidity in our healthcare and our military and all this stuff. We're going to build back better than ever before. I'm David Granosky. We'll take a quick break, and we're going to shift gears with a deep dive into the science of seed oils with our guest coming up, Dr. Cate Shanahan. Back in just a moment.
David Granosky here. Let me tell you about a man named Gabriel. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals. Join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Cate. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Cate will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Cate. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to CateCatania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Cate, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Cate, putting families first.
Office Tampa. Not attorney spokeswoman.
Hello, this is David Kronosky with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality, grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a 6th-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR.
Fighting high electricity bills in this heat? Call Insulation Plus of Tampa at 813-951-4374. Insulation Plus of Tampa will do a free 10-point attic inspection and show you how adding insulation and solar fans will lower the temperature, which helps your air conditioner work more efficient and last longer. Call today for your free attic inspection and get 10% off an attic solar fan and free attic stairway insulator. Call Insulation Plus of Tampa at 813-951-4374. That's 813-951-4374 and start saving money today.
Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. We're live on radio. And I want to let you know, for those of you who are more into the anthropological stuff, we're working on some plans right now to do more of that. We have our Things Hidden podcast where you can watch Joffrey Schellenberger, our latest guest, we talk about Rene Girard and mimetic theory in the time of a pandemic. But we have many special guests coming. It's exciting. We have the widest range of guests I think anybody has. And yeah, you got some people, that think you should just pick one topic, but it's just too boring. There's too much excitement to see when you see how these principles of thinking clearly about mimesis and groupthink, how they unlock so many topics that can inform our lives and enhance the quality of our life and give us our health back. It's just amazing what we can do. People have just held academic knowledge in such a sacrosanct direction, and it should be, true knowledge should be given great respect. But we've got to be able to understand that so much of what we think is settled science is just mimetic conformity. It's people circling the wagons around the inner clique of their industry or field of science. And it's easy to do so because government is the monopoly funder of so much of scientific research, whether it's in nutrition or medicine development or any of this type of stuff. And so ideas just get they just get stunted in that context, because people don't have any competitive pressure to make sure that they're actually operating under a correct paradigm. And that's why it's important for us to have the courage to challenge the so-called experts and to expose them when they're completely wrong. And I wanted to start off this topic about unsaturated vegetable oils by reading this article at raypeat.com. Ray Peat, we had him on the program recently on an online-only show, which you can find on aneighborschoice.com. He's a nutritional expert, and he's just a very brilliant mind in many different topics. But he kind of put a little glossary, a kind of little Q&A, so to speak, about vegetable oil. So I thought I'd read parts of it because a lot of you ask, this is the topic. I get more interaction and engagement from my audience on radio and online and everything from the seed oil thing than almost anything else that I talk about. And we talk about everything. We challenge physics, we challenge quantum, we challenge relativity, we challenge the Keynesian economic model, we challenge the foreign policy. But when I get into the seed oil topic, it's lit a fire in people. It's exciting to see it. And so I thought I'd start off by kind of getting into some of the basics of what this problem is, right? Because I know a lot of you call in or you email me and you're asking, okay, how do I get into this? Because I really understand what you're saying, but I need to get the basics down, right? I need to get the foundations understood. And so the best thing to do is just kind of refresh us every now and then and learn what's going on with these things. Unsaturation. So when we talk about vegetable oils, we're talking about what is going on in most of the food supply today. These vegetable oils are found in the chicken and pork fat that we eat. They are found in the processed goods. You look at cookies and crackers, ice creams. You think ice cream is cream, and but it's not. It's got a lot of these oils in them, and we got to stay away from them. And we should never let our kids eat this stuff. I'm not saying to be, like hysterical. Okay, we don't do that. That's what the TV party does. The TV party does hysteria. We do wisdom and discernment. And that's a quiet thing. You don't have to be, oh my goodness, if my kid gets a junk thing. But it shouldn't be something that you introduce into their life so that it becomes a habit-forming thing. It's kind of like you don't want to make it a taboo where you say, do not eat daddy's cookies. Where it's like, how about not have them in the house? Because once you do that, then you don't have to say, thou shalt not eat. It's just not around, right? And so it doesn't create a habit, and it doesn't create a hot stove of syndrome where the kids are saying, well, man, why do you guys get to eat all this junk food, seed oil, sludge, but I can't have it? So it makes them desire something. But if you don't have it in the house, and it's not something you make a big deal about, like, well, do not touch that, do not touch it, it's really bad. You just, it's just like you don't go to when you have a kid, you don't walk by the cigarettes and say, watch out, those are cigarettes, don't get them, they're really bad. That's stupid. You don't do that. The same thing goes for products that have seed oils. This is, there's a common sense approach to dealing with this issue, because that's a problem people raise all the time. And I think they use it as an excuse because they want to be lazy and not care about, proper nutrition for kids. But they'll say, well, we don't want to become extremists where we make taboos out of things, and then they'll be wanting it all the time. Well, the way you make it not a taboo is that you don't make it a big deal like a hysterical thing, and you don't bring it around and then say, don't eat it. You just don't have it in the house, because if it's not good for you to eat, and it certainly isn't, it's not good for the children to eat. So let's get that straight at the beginning, because we're going to dive into this. And so that's important, because I really, that irritates me, because I understand if you don't know something, I don't have any condemnation or anything, but when you know something, if you know seed oils are as bad as smoking cigarettes, or worse in some sense, because they cause even more problems long term, then once you know how problematic they are, you have a duty to act. With great power comes great responsibility. Who said that? The Spider-Man movie? Well, it's applicable here, because if you are a parent, you have power over what your kids eat, and you should take that very seriously, not in a hysterical way, but in a quiet wisdom way. So I want to set that as the basis first, and then we're going to dive into this Ray P. article as an introduction, and maybe we'll learn some things along the way. It'll be interesting. So stay with us. A Neighbor's Choice will continue in just a moment.
Tampa Bay. What's everyone saying about the all-new News Talk 1040 WHBO?
That's our big radio station, and it's one of the best news stations.
Dedication to news and information.
Because I like to get the information from what I feel like is a pretty balanced perspective.
I enjoy it.
It's not just one-sided. It tells the full story.
I'm listening to it most of the day.
Every second I can.
Tampa Bay. The news and talk of Tampa Bay.
I just love that station.
News Talk 1040 WHBO.
President Biden saying there's been significant progress airlifting Americans from Kabul.
As we continue to work the logistics of evacuation, we're in constant contact with the Taliban, working to ensure civilians have safe passage to the airport.
But ABC's Ian Panel in Kabul says those who helped Americans not only can't get to the airport, but fear for their lives.
I have a dear friend, an Afghan colleague, a journalist, who I met this morning, he's had the Taliban come to his house twice. He's had to move around the city with his wife, his 4-month-old baby, his elderly parents, and he doesn't know what to do. Now, he has all the right paperwork, as do all these other people. They just can't get through those checkpoints, and that is the problem.
COVID hospitalizations across the U.S. hit nearly 93,000, the highest number of patients since January. The man who claimed he had a bomb on Capitol Hill Thursday told a federal judge he was off his meds. He was charged in federal court today. Dave Packer, ABC News.
News Talk 1040, Tampa Bay weather forecast.
Good afternoon. This weather brought to you by Insulation Plus of Tampa. Call Insulation Plus of Tampa at 813-951-4374 and save money today. We'll keep an eye out to the east for a 30% chance of widely scattered afternoon and evening storms today through Sunday. And we're hot. High today 93, 90 tomorrow, 93 on Sunday. The overnight lows is 79. I'm meteorologist Alan Archer for News Talk 1040 WHBO.
A Neighbor's Choice returns. I'm your host, David Gornosky. You can call in at 727-587-1040. At 727-587-1040. And I mentioned we were going to have Cate Shanahan, but I think we've had a scheduling change that we're going to have to work out. But we'll get her on very soon. We've had her on our podcast again, and she's a friend of the program, and we'll get her on again very soon. That happens when you're doing live shows. Some things, change at the last second. But let's go back to this topic of the vegetable oils with the Ray Peat article. First, I'm going to look at some of your comments here. Please ask Cate if linoleic acid seed oils are contributing to high injuries in baseball. I heard that from Pujols has been experimenting with vegan diet. It shows. Any substance, food or otherwise, that contributes to inflammation would theoretically increase chance of injury, in my opinion. Tina says. Another says, those crap fats are in almost all packaged food by design, of course. Another says, Aaron says, I'll never forget this article I read where a boy lost his eyesight when he was 18 because his parents fed him nothing but junk food like ham sandwiches and potato chips. And Joseph says, yes, the eye is most sensitive to poor diet. And that's important. That's very important. That's a good point. I've had Chris Kenobi on, another friend of the show who is an excellent, articulate person on the topic of vegetable oils and how they are the elephant in the room of our health decline. And he's shown adult macular degeneration is related to seed oils directly. It's not just a tangential thing. It's like the primary mechanism that causes that problem to happen. So let's get into this mystery topic. For some people, this is like, I've never even heard of this, right? I've joked around before. Some people think, seed oils, what is that? Is that the essential oils that I'm supposed to join the program for or something? No, it's these vegetable oils found in food. So let's start off with this Ray Peat article because I liked a lot of things from it. Unsaturated oils, especially polyunsaturates, weaken the immune system's function in ways that are similar to the damage caused by radiation, hormone imbalance, cancer, aging, or viral infections. The media discuss sexually transmitted and drug-induced immunodeficiency, but it isn't yet considered polite to discuss vegetable oil-induced immunodeficiency. When an oil is saturated, that means that the molecule has all the hydrogen atoms it can hold. Unsaturation means that some hydrogen atoms have been removed, and this opens the structure of the molecule in a way that makes it susceptible to attack by free radicals. Free radicals are reactive molecular fragments that occur even in healthy cells and can damage the cell. When unsaturated oils are exposed to free radicals, they can create chain reactions of free radicals that spread the damage in the cell and contribute to the cell's aging. Rancidity of oils occurs when they are exposed to oxygen in the body just as in the bottle. harmful free radicals are formed and oxygen is used up. Essential fatty acids, EFA, are, according to textbooks, linoleic acid and linolenic acid, and they are supposed to have the status of vitamins, which means must be taken in the diet to make life possible. However, we are able to synthesize our own unsaturated fats when we don't eat the EFA, so they are not essential. The term thus appears to be a misnomer. So, question, you say vegetable oils are hazardous to your health. What vegetable oils are you talking about? He says, I'm referring to soybean oil, corn oil, safflower oil, canola, sesame oil, sunflower, palm, and any others that are labeled as unsaturated or polyunsaturated. Almond oil, which is used in many cosmetics, is very unsaturated. Chemically, the material that makes these oils very toxic is the polyunsaturated fat itself. These unsaturated oils are found in very high concentrations in many seeds and in the fats of animals that have eaten a diet containing them. The fresh oils, whether cold pressed or consumed as part of the living plant material, are intrinsically toxic, and it is not any special industrial treatment that makes them toxic. Since these oils, so that's important. It's not just the industrial process that makes them toxic. No, it's the actual plant material itself. You're not supposed to eat it. Since these oils occur in other parts of plants at lower concentration and in the animals which eat the plants, it is impossible to eat a diet which lacks them unless special foods are prepared in the laboratory. These toxic oils are sometimes called the essential fatty acids or vitamin F, but this concept of the oils as essential nutrients was clearly disproved over 50 years ago. Linoleic and linolenic acids and other polyunsaturated fatty acids, which are now fed to pigs to fatten them in the form of corn and soybeans, cause the animal's fat to be chemically equivalent to vegetable oil. In the late 40s, chemical toxins were used to suppress the thyroid function of pigs to make them get fatter while consuming less food. When that was found to be carcinogenic, it was then found that corn and soybeans had the same anti-thyroid effect, causing the animals to be fattened at low cost. The animal's fat became chemically similar to the fats in their foods, causing it to be equally toxic and equally fattening. So that's why I tell you folks, it's not just that you stay away from the vegetable oils, you also have to stay away from animal foods like pork and chicken. Those are monogastric animals, which means they don't have the chambers to take out the toxic level of linoleic acid found in corn and soy feed, right? So when you're eating fatty pork or you're eating, unfortunately, bacon, a lot of people love bacon, right? Or you're eating, fatty chicken, the skin on and all that, you're getting this toxic linoleic acid. Now, if you've been eating this stuff for decades, it's time to take a break from it so your body can heal, because you're going to find out why in this piece that I'm going to reference. These oils are derived from seeds, but their abundance in some meat has led to a lot of confusion about animal fats. Many researchers still think that lard is saturated fat, but this is simply incorrect when pigs are fed soybeans and corn. And they weren't always fed those things, by the way. You can, go back in the past, they didn't have them that high level of inflammatory oils in the fat. So how are these oils hazardous to your health? Ultimately, all systems of the body are harmed by an excess of these oils. There are two reasons for this. One is that the plants produce the oils for protection, not only to store the energy for the germination of the seed, to defend the seeds from the animals that would eat them. The oils block the digestive enzymes in the animal's stomach. Do you want to eat something that blocks the digestive enzymes in your stomach? Digestion is one of the most basic functions, and evolution has built many other systems by using variations of that system. As a result, all of these systems are damaged by the substances which damage the digestive system. The other reason is that the seeds are designed to germinate in early spring, so their energy stores must be accessible when the temperatures are cool, and they normally don't have to remain viable through the hot summer months. Unsaturated oils are liquid when they are cold, and this is necessary for any organism that lives at low temperatures. For example, fish in cold water would be stiff if they contain saturated fats. These oils easily get rancid when they are warm and exposed to oxygen. Seeds containing a small amount of vitamin E delay the rancidity. When the oils are stored in our tissues, they are much warmer and more directly exposed to oxygen. than they would be in the seeds. And so their tendency to oxidize is very great. These oxidative processes can damage enzymes and other parts of cells, and especially their ability to produce energy. The enzymes which break down proteins are inhibited by unsaturated fats, and these enzymes are needed not only for digestion, but also for production of thyroid hormones, clot removal. Now remember, the clot removal, what does that remind you of? What's going on with this current disease that's around the world, right? The problem is it creates clotting. That's one of the big problems that people have. So going back to this, clot removal, immunity, and the general adaptability of cells. The risk of abnormal blood clotting, what is going on right now with this pandemic? I told you the seed oil consumption, not just me, the data shows it. Frontiers in Physiology, Bruce Hammock, look it up, that people who have severe acute respiratory distress syndrome with this new disease have a high buildup of linoleic acid in their body. And what do you see? The risks of abnormal blood clotting, inflammation, that's the other big thing, immune deficiency, that's another thing, shock, aging, that's the other thing related to this disease, obesity, that's the other thing related to this pandemic, and cancer are increased. Thyroid and progesterone are decreased. Since the unsaturated oils block protein digestion in the stomach, we can be malnourished even while eating well. So you're eating a big steak, but you're eating the fries that are cooked in the oil. Guess what? Those oils are blocking your ability to absorb the protein that you need to be a healthy person. This is why this is such an important topic. Get them out of your life. Plants produce many protective substances to repel or injure insects and other animals that eat them. They produce their own pesticides. The oils and seeds have this function. On top of this natural toxicity, the plants are sprayed with industrial pesticides, which can concentrate in the seed oils. It isn't the quantity of these polyunsaturated oils which govern the harm they do, but the relationship between them and the saturated fats. Obesity, free radical production, the formation of age pigment, blood clotting, inflammation, immunity, and energy production are all responsive to the ratio of unsaturated fats to saturated fats. And the higher this ratio is, the greater the probability of harm there is. There are interesting interactions between these oils and estrogen. For example, puberty occurs at an earlier age if estrogen is high, or if these oils are more abundant in the diet. This is probably a factor in the development of cancer. All systems of the body are harmed by an excess of these oils. There are three main kinds of damage. So if you're listening, you can write this down. Three main kinds of damage caused by vegetable oils. 1, hormonal imbalances. 2, damage to the immune system. And 3, oxidative damage. So how do they cause hormonal imbalances? This is the RayPete.com article I'm reading. There are many changes in hormones caused by unsaturated fats. Their best understood effect is their interference with the function of the thyroid gland. Unsaturated oils block thyroid hormone secretion, its movement in the circulatory system, and the response of tissues to the hormone. When the thyroid hormone is deficient, the body is generally exposed to increased levels of estrogen. Have you heard about everybody having these too much estrogen? This is where this is coming from. Don't take this as a side issue. This is essential. This is an essential thing to understanding how to take care of your body, and not just your body, but your mental health. The thyroid hormone is essential for making the protective hormones progesterone and pregnenolone. So we'll see if that's... So these hormones are lowered when anything interferes with the function of the thyroid. The thyroid hormone is required for using and eliminating cholesterol. So cholesterol is likely to be raised by anything which blocks the thyroid function. How do they damage the immune system? Vegetable oil is recognized as a drug for knocking out the immune system. Did you hear that? Vegetable oil is recognized as a drug for knocking out the immune system. So keep eating that garbage if you want to have a lower immune system when you're dealing especially with this pandemic. Vegetable oil emulsions were used to nourish cancer patients, but it was discovered that the unsaturated oils were suppressing their immune systems. The same products in which vegetable oil is emulsified with water for intravenous injection are now marketed specifically for the purpose of suppressing immunity in patients who have had organ transplants. Do you hear that? Using the oils in foods has the same harmful effect on the immune system. Unsaturated fats directly kill white blood cells, and he's citing these things that I'm mentioning in the article. How do vegetable oils cause oxidative damage? Unsaturated oils get rancid when exposed to air. That is called oxidation, and it is the same process that occurs when oil paint dries. Free radicals are produced in the process. This process is accelerated at higher temperatures. The free radicals produced in this process react with parts of cells, such as molecules of DNA and protein, and may become attached to those cells, causing abnormalities of structure and function. But what if I eat only organically grown vegetable oils? Because that's another thing. People see that word organic and they think, okay, therefore it's perfectly good. No. You can eat a lot of junk that's terrible for you that's organic. Even without the addition of agricultural chemicals, an excess of unsaturated vegetable oils damages the human body. Cancer can't occur unless there are unsaturated oils in the diet. And he cites a study from 1985. Alcoholic cirrhosis of the liver cannot occur unless there are unsaturated oils in the diet. Heart disease can be produced by unsaturated oils and prevented by adding saturated oils to the diet, which is exactly counter to what your government and your lying garbage media tells you. The same lying garbage media that told you, buy a house forever and ever and ever in 2007. It'll never go down. The same garbage media that told you, send your kids off to war. Afghanistan will turn into a liberal democracy in 2 days. The same media that told you, smoke cigarettes. The pack of cigarettes will make you healthy every day. Remember that? They said that for decades. Same media telling you not to touch the saturated oils and butter and red meat and coconut oil and touch and gobble up the stuff that's causing all these diseases. Shame on them. Their time is up in terms of relevance. This is the 21st century media. It's happening right now as we speak, right here. What oils are safe? Coconut and olive oil are the only vegetable oils that are really safe. But butter and lamb fat, which are highly saturated, are generally very safe, except when the animals have been poisoned. Coconut oil is unique in its ability to prevent weight gain or cure obesity by stimulating metabolism. It is quickly metabolized and functions in some ways as an antioxidant. Olive oil, though it is somewhat fattening, is less fattening than corn or soy oil and contains an antioxidant which makes it protective against heart disease and cancer. Israel had the world's highest incident of breast cancer when they allowed the insecticide lindane to be used in dairies, and the cancer rate decreased immediately after the government prohibited its use. The United States has fairly good laws to control the use of cancer-causing agents in the food supply, but they are not vigorously enforced. Certain cancers are several times more common among corn farmers than among other farmers, presumably because corn requires the use of more pesticides. This probably makes corn oil's toxicity greater than it would be otherwise, but even the pure, organically grown material is toxic because of its intrinsic unsaturation. In the United States, lard is toxic because the pigs are fed large quantities of corn and soybeans. Besides the intrinsic toxicity of the seed oils, they are contaminated with agricultural chemicals. Corn farmers have a very high incidence of cancer, presumably because of the pesticides they use on their crops. Let's take a quick break and return live on A Neighbor's Choice, diving into this topic of vegetable oils. We'll also hear from Scott Horton, the great Scott Horton, in just a moment. Stay with us. More in a moment.
Who is your neighbor? Dave and Wally are team drivers for Oakley Transport. One day, they came across a very serious accident on the highway. Some might pass on by, but Dave and Wally saw there was no time to waste. They jumped into action and saved 2 people's lives with moments to spare. That's the kind of courageous love we need more of today. It reflects the respected culture Oakley Transport develops with their driving professionals. CDLA licensed drivers. Join Oakley Transport today for a rewarding career. Visit oakleytransport.com. That's oakleytransport.com. Hello, this is David Gronowski with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a sixth-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR.
Are you ready to transform your career? Jess Smith was too. She was stuck in a job that was controlling her life, consuming her free time, and offering little opportunity for growing her pay. Then she found FinTech Mortgage Association, and she never looked back. FinTech Mortgage Association makes home lending simple, and they take care of home buyers like family. Using technology to make everyone's life easier, FinTech Mortgage Association equips each of their loan solutions architects with the tools they need to build a career with a schedule they control, a product they can take pride in, and an earning potential that is life-changing. Unleash your true potential. Join FinTech Mortgage Association. Visit finmay.com. That's FINMAE.com. You're in charge now. NMLS ID 1492187. Equal housing lender.
A Neighbor's Choice returns. Bruno on our comment stream says, David, invite one day Dr. Stephanie Seneff to talk about glyphosate. It is a hidden poison as harmful as seed oils. I'll look into that. Thanks for the suggestion. Another says, I like salads. How about mayonnaise on the salad? Well, watch out for the mayonnaise on the salad, please. Be careful. Bruno says salad and vegetable oils, if not organic, they will be full of pesticides and glyphosate mainly. Another says make your own mayonnaise with olive oil. And Joseph says rancid, the difference between fresh coffee and old coffee. That's an interesting point because, you know, coffee contains linoleic acid. So if it's going rancid, you're going to get that nasty taste in there. Let's go back to this story in raypete.com as we continue with this story. But aren't tropical oils bad for us? That's the coconut oil type stuff. In general, tropical oils are much more healthful than oils produced in a cold climate. That's because tropical plants live at a temperature that is close to our natural body temperature. Isn't that interesting? Tropical oils are stable at high temperatures. When we eat tropical oils, they don't get rancid in our tissues as the cold climate seed oils, such as corn oil, safflower oil, and soy oil. When added to a balanced diet, coconut oil slightly lowers the cholesterol, which is exactly what is expected when a dietary change raises thyroid function. This same increase in thyroid function and metabolic rate explains why people and animals that regularly eat coconut oil are lean and remarkably free of heart disease and cancer. Although I don't recommend palm oil as a food because I think it is less stable than coconut oil, some studies show that it contains valuable nutrients. Is coconut oil fattening? Coconut oil is the least fattening of all the oils. Pig farmers tried to use it to fatten their animals, but when it was added to the animal feed, coconut oil made the pigs lean. So what do you think that might do to us? If we're eating, they have to give the pigs vegetable oils because they bred, if you listen to Brad Marshall, he said they got rid of the breeds that have their own natural storage of fat, and they use these pigs that are dependent on the feed to get their fat layers, and they give them the vegetable oils, and it makes them extremely obese. but you give them coconut oil and they're lean. And another question is light olive oil okay? No. Now and then someone learns how to make a profit from waste material. Light olive oil is a low-grade material which sometimes has a rancid smell and probably shouldn't be used as food. How about this question? Is margarine okay? There are several problems with margarine. The manufacturing process introduces some toxins, including a unique type of fat, which has been associated with heart disease. There are likely to be dyes and preservatives added to margarine, and newer products contain new chemicals that haven't been in use long enough to know whether they are safe. However, the basic hardening process, hydrogenation of the oils, has been found to make the oils less likely to cause cancer. If I had to choose between eating ordinary corn oil or corn oil that was 100% saturated to make a hard margarine, I would choose the hard margarine because it resists oxidation, isn't suppressive to the thyroid gland, and doesn't cause cancer. But you generally need to stay away from margarine, as he said. What about butter? Butter contains natural vitamin A and D and some beneficial natural hormones. It is less fattening than the unsaturated oils. There is much less cholesterol in an ounce of butter than in a lean chicken breast. Are fish oils good for you? We get this question a lot. Some of the unsaturated fats in fish are definitely less toxic than those in corn oil or soy oil, but that doesn't mean they are safe. 50 years ago, it was found that a large amount of cod liver oil in dogs' diet increased their death rate from cancer by 20 times, from the usual 5% to 100%. A diet rich in fish oil causes intense production of toxic lipid peroxides and has been observed to reduce a man's sperm count to 0. So isn't that interesting? One of the few animal fats that you get any positive press from the garbage trash corporate media. Interesting. What about lard? In this country, lard is toxic because the pigs are fed large quantities of corn and soybeans. Okay, we've talked about that before. Another question. I have no control over oils when eating out. What can I do to offset the harmful effects of polyunsaturated oils? That's a good question. A small amount of these oils won't kill you. It is the proportion of them in your diet that matters. A little extra vitamin E, such as 100 units per day, will take care of an occasional American restaurant meal. Based on animal studies, it would take a teaspoonful per day of corn or soy oil added to a fat-free diet to significantly increase our risk of cancer. Unfortunately, it is impossible to devise a fat-free diet outside of a laboratory. Vegetables, grains, nuts, fish, and meats all naturally contain large amounts of these oils, and the extra oil used in cooking becomes a more serious problem. Why are the unsaturated oils so popular if they are dangerous? It's a whole system of promotion, advertising, and profitability. 50 years ago, paints and varnishes were made of soy oil, safflower oil, and flaxseed oil. Then chemists learned how to make paint from petroleum, and so they needed to find a way to keep their production going, so they put it into pig feed and chicken feed and your feed, but you don't have to keep eating it. That's it for A Neighbor's Choice Hour 1. We'll be back in just a few moments where we'll dive into more news headlines, and also Scott Horton will stop by to analyze what's going on in Afghanistan. But for now, Godspeed.
Your home for news, talk, and information. 1040 WHBO Pinellas Park. Tampa Bay's all new News Talk 1040.
It's the only way I get news.
From ABC News, I'm Dave Packard. At the White House, President Joe Biden calling the past week heartbreaking and promising Americans in Afghanistan the United States will get them home.
We're particularly focused on our engagements on making sure every American who wants to leave can get to the airport. Where we have been seeing challenges with Americans, for Americans, We have thus far been able to resolve them.
ABC's Ian Panel is in Kabul.
The truth is that the military have done a great job and they have the capacity to get people out. Two key problems. One is getting them through those checkpoints, and then the other is getting them to the bases, the locations elsewhere. We heard again there was some kind of hold-up in Qatar, that the bases there were full, that people didn't have enough provisions. Again, the numbers are overwhelming for everybody, so they're now looking at other options.
The U.S. has plans to set up housing at 3 U.S. military bases stateside that can house up to 22,000 people. There are plans to house as many as 8,000 people in third countries that agreed to take some of the evacuees from Afghanistan. Officials have charged the man who said he had a bomb near the Capitol yesterday with attempted use of a weapon of mass destruction. ABC's Andy Field with the latest from Washington.
Floyd Roseberry telling a judge he hadn't received his medication this past week, and that would make it hard for him to understand what was happening in his D.C. court hearing. Federal officials charging him with trying to use an explosive device as he parked his pickup truck across from the U.S. Capitol Thursday. He surrendered 4 hours later. Police found bomb-making materials in the truck. The court holding him without bail and ordering a mental health evaluation.
The death toll from COVID-19 in the U.S. has risen to 625,000, data from Johns Hopkins University. And the death toll in North Carolina from Tropical Storm Fred rising to 4, southern New England on alert as Tropical Storm Henri approaches, expected to be at hurricane strength when it makes landfall on Sunday. You're listening to ABC News.
Ad paid for by CompleteCar.com. This is a special alert to all Americans who own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles with an auto warranty about to expire or with no warranty coverage at all. Due to the COVID crisis, we are announcing a low-cost extended service plan that is now available to the public to save any driver out-of-pocket expenses on auto repairs. Call now to find out how you can pay nothing for auto repairs. Yes, you heard that correctly. Pay nothing for auto repairs. An open phone line has been established for all drivers to call for a free quick quote. Call 800-549-1980. Now. Drivers who are covered by this auto protection will not have to pay for a covered repair bill again. This auto coverage is at an all-time low, much lower than what dealerships are charging. Additionally, drivers who activate this auto coverage today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and free rental car at no additional cost. Call for your free quick quote today. 800-549-1985. 800-549-1985. What do you have to lose? Again, 800-549-1985.
In Haiti, recovery efforts from Saturday's 7.2 magnitude earthquake continue, but there's growing concern the lessons learned from the 2010 quake have been forgotten. Tatiana Anglad is operations director for the Lambie Fund of Haiti.
The Haitian people are very strong and resilient people. They've always been resilient, and everyone is willing to work and do their part to live on their own. We're not looking for handouts. If you're going to do anything, make sure it's a hand up, because after that aid leaves, they're left on their own.
The death toll from Saturday's quake is now at least 2,100. Hundreds are still missing, and more than 12,000 are injured. Flight delays at Burbank Airport in California after two planes got a little too close.
The two planes sit with their wingtips against each other. An American Airlines Boeing 737 was being towed to its gate when the Burbank Airport tells us the wing of the plane hit the wing of a parked Alaska Airlines Airbus A320. Nobody was on either plane. Nobody was injured. The FAA has to inspect the planes. The main departure runway at Burbank was shut down. Alex Stone, ABC News.
China's three-child policy has been formally passed into law. The legislation allows couples to have up to 3 children to boost the birth rate. Along with the new law, several resolutions aimed at reducing the burden of raising a child have also passed. In 2016, China scrapped its decades-old one-child policy to replace it with a 2-child limit, but it did not lead to an upsurge in births. This is ABC News.
The U.S. dollar is plummeting. Protect your savings against inflation with precious metals. I'm Dinesh D'Souza for Birch Gold Group. Birch Gold Group is who I trust to help you protect your IRA or 401k with gold and silver. With thousands of satisfied customers, an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau, get a free information kit by texting the word PROTECT to 989898. Again, text PROTECT to 989898 today.
Dave Packer, ABC News.
News Talk 1040, Tampa Bay weather forecast.
Good afternoon. This weather brought to you by Insulation Plus of Tampa. Call Insulation Plus of Tampa at 813-951-4374 and save money today. We'll keep an eye out to the east for a 30% chance of widely scattered afternoon and evening storms today through Sunday, and we'll high high today 93, 90 tomorrow, 93 on Sunday. The overnight lows is 79. I'm meteorologist Alan Archer for News Talk 1040 WHBO.
Are you ready to transform your career? Jess Smith was too. She was stuck in a job that was controlling her life, consuming her free time, and offering little opportunity for growing her pay. Then she found FinTech Mortgage.
This portion of the upcoming amazing broadcast is brought to you by the law firm of Cate & Cate, award-winning personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys, serving Tampa Bay families for over 28 years.
From the heart of Central Florida, you're listening to the most electrifying show in media, A Neighbor's Choice. And I'm your host, your neighbor, David Granosky. So glad to be with you live again for another journey through the broadcast news cycle of the day, what's going on in current events. And that's exciting because there's so much happening, so much opportunity for learning and growing from this moment that we're in. It's an absolute mess what's happening to people all over the world. But in that way, we're in it together because we're all kind of experiencing different tastes of madness and these different governments' responses to this disease. It's just been an absolute field day for a bunch of bigots, narcissists, sociopaths. They've been having a great time using fear. I mean, that's, that you've got problematic folks when their best times for their movements is when they've got a kind of, they've got a dependency on fear. When you have to have fear to get your power, that's a sign that whatever you're selling is garbage, right? Because perfect love casts out fear, right? And, where do we hear the passage, fear not, right? That folks who care about liberty and love, they don't feed off of fear. And that's why I don't understand why the TV party and the McWoke left can't get their head out of their tail. Start waking up to the fact, wait a second, why is it that my side always feeds off of fear? Is that a sign that I'm on the wrong side of history? It might be, yeah, could be. Could be a clue that you're on the wrong side of history if your movement is always based on fear, intimidation, threats of coercion. That's all they've got. Terrorizing people with fear all the time. And I know that people who fall for that stuff, are a lot of them mean well. So I understand. I'm not putting everybody in the same category, but a lot of people relish the desire. That's why you see so many of the leftists laughing at people being sick with this disease if they're unvaccinated. Meanwhile, all the vaccinated people, a lot of them are getting sick too. And they come up with little narratives as to why they're better than other people. It's just incredible. What this is the reason why people are so sold on using aggressive language to try to morally lecture people is because they have had their faith. They have placed their faith in the technocracy of modernism for so long that the fact that they can't contain a natural virus like they thought they could is shattering their worldview. Do you see what I mean? The reason why the McWoke left and the TV party is so dependent on shaming and attacking people morally who don't go along with the herd mentality of 50 masks and all this stuff and lockdowns and tyranny is because that's the only way they can hold together their broken worldview that continues to be shattered by reality. I mean, who in the world would take health advice from the same clown that funded the lab that produced this disaster that has hurt people? Everybody who's lost a loved one or who's had a loved one have a severe harm from this this unnatural disease that spread from the Wuhan lab, they should be able to sue Fauci and all of the bureaucrats who are involved in stupidly funding a dentist-level security lab to do this thing. They should be able to sue these people for damages and their institutions and Bill Gates and all the people who have been propping up this nonsense. Sidney Watson said, just had the most depressing call with my family in Australia. They feel trapped. They feel like their friends will turn on them. My brother said everyone in Melbourne has a black cloud over them. They don't know how to get out. I just want to cry. It's terrible what's going on in that place. And I think that they're experimenting with people. It's disgusting to see what they can get away with, to see what they can push on to the rest of the world. And they're defenseless. They've bought into the lie, the mythic lie of their state, and they think that they're not religious. But they are religious. Faith means, who do you put your trust in? So if you put your trust in clowns that tell you you can't have a beer outside without a mask, that stupid clown that said that in Australia, that little loser, that whimpering little liar, if you put your faith in that, that's who you worship. Faith and worship go hand in hand. Who you put your trust in, who you're willing to put your life on the line for. That's what people are showing, who their real God is. And unfortunately, many people around the world, their true God is the state, whatever state apparatus happens to be their local religion. And that's what we're seeing. This is a time of test to see, who do you really trust? Do you trust kings? Do you trust people who want to lord over you? Remember what Jesus said? We don't lord over people here. But that's all that these statists do. Lord over people. You can't have a drink without a mask in Australia. You can't leave your house. These people are maniacal. And I want to expose how their stuff is falling apart everywhere we look. Look at the story in Reuters, which is an establishment state media hack group. It says, exclusive, FBI finds scant evidence U.S. Capitol attack was coordinated. The FBI has found scant evidence that the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol was the result of an organized plot to overturn the presidential election result, according to 4 current and former law enforcement officials. So you see that? Remember, they've been pushing this. It's like every day we just hear another myth from these garbage, sacrificial, violence-loving media outlets. Another myth gets blown apart every day. Remember? Every day. I mean, I can't keep track of it. I mean, this whole show, whenever we're really reading the news, it's just about reading about how, yep, another news story, hoax, another news story, hoax, over and over and over again. They are the Jussie Smollett media complex. That's all they are, liars. They just lie all the frickin' time, and people are gullible enough to believe it. Why? Because it's their religion. They worship human beings. They worship and they imitate those who are liars. They put their trust in people who tell them, don't drink a beer by yourself. You can get a virus that spreads in indoor transmission. That stupid clown that told people they have to wear a mask while they drink a beer in Australia, he won't tell them to stop eating vegetable oils because he doesn't love you. He doesn't love you. He doesn't see you as a neighbor. That's why this show's called A Neighbor's Choice. We talk about real reality. We just showed you an article from raypete.com talking about inflammation, the blood clotting, the lowering of your immune system, all these different issues that are affecting you if you're eating these vegetable oils. That stupid clown that tells you can't drink a drink with a mask on, he doesn't love you. He sees you as an animal or an object. So we see here that that's what's going on. 90 to 95% of these cases, going back to this FBI story, said a former senior law enforcement official with knowledge of the investigation. They're one-off cases. Then you have 5% maybe of these militia groups that were more closely organized, but there was no grand scheme with Roger Stone and Alex Jones and all of these people to storm the Capitol and take hostages. So again, Saturday Night Live, all the little lying, low information, stupid, past their prime media institutions tried so hard to create another myth that falls apart. And they did that with full venom and hate in their heart for people. And that's why we push back hard, because we're not going to allow these hateful people to demonize people and tear this country apart with hate. And just because I push back hard doesn't mean I want to see them treated the same way they want us treated. They want people who disagree with them banned from restaurants, as Don Lemon said banned from grocery stores. They want the Trump supporters who are mostly just ambling around in a confusion state of stupor to be locked away in solitary confinement, mental torture, just like all the other nonviolent prisoners that Biden presides over and doesn't lay a finger getting them out of prison. That's what McWoke trash ideology is all about. Acting like you care because you watch some Netflix special about social justice, stupid, tokenism, and then you go around and then do nothing but vote for people like Biden to keep people in cages with solitary confinement while a pandemic you say is so deadly people can't drink a beer without a mask is raging. You know how stupid this stuff is? It's laughable. It's like punching down at the dumbest. But that's the problem. Totalitarian, authoritarian movements, they don't have to have any sense. In fact, they're usually the dumbest things ever, but they catch on because people don't push back. We must push back. And you push back with love, but with conviction, with courage, with confidence, with the truth about what makes for good health, which we do, with the truth about what makes for good science and technology, which we do. We provide you with the facts. They provide you with misinformation and trash information. So federal officials have arrested more than 570 alleged participants, but believe the violence was not centrally coordinated by far-right groups or prominent supporters of then-President Donald Trump, according to sources who have been involved or briefed on the investigations. So here's what's going on. Unashamed USA summed it up well. He says, summing this up, feds abandoned the insurrection plot narrative because Revolver News and Darren Beattie, who we had on the show recently, exposed that it was actually government agents concocting the failed false flag plan. They cut and ran and are now sweeping it all under the rug because people are onto them. And Brian Wright says, next up, what role, if any, did the FBI play in inciting protesters on January 6th? Darren Beattie, the guy who was writing these stories at Revolver.news, who we had him on the show on Things Hidden. You can find it on aneighborschoice.com if you missed it. It's a fascinating discussion. We get into philosophy, we get into anthropology, we get into ethics, and we get into these stories that he was exclusive in pushing out. He says, before taking a victory lap here, referring to this Reuters story I just read, understand what the feds are doing with this admission. This Fed announcement is 100% about the FBI getting an excuse to justify kneecapping their investigations into militia leadership. Meaning he's been suggesting that there's been a lot of FBI informants at the top of pushing the folks to go in there and do violence. And so they're dropping their story that this was all a coordinated thing because the reporting at Revolver.news and other outlets like Tucker raised real questions about whether the folks who were supposed to be in charge of these militia groups were FBI informants or government informants or something of some degree. So you see again, you got people like who watch SNL and all these failed, boring programs. They've been, rubbing their hands with glee at the thought of being able to treat Trump supporters or whoever as less than humans, as scum. They love it because that's what people who are bought and paid for by sacrificial violence want to do. Scapegoat, hate. And yes, there's hate on the other side for sure, but they don't have 90% control of all these failed institutions that we have to live in all the time. So they're not able to amplify their hate and institutionalize it and weaponize it with every frickin' government agency you can imagine. But these nutcase far leftist radicals have been sweeping all the institutions that are now failing, but they've been able to use that to weaponize their hate to hurt people. So they were excited about deeming anybody, half the country, independents, anybody. If you didn't vote for that criminal Biden, you were a monster. And they were excited to be able to say, oh, now look, you guys are all terrorists. We can get you. We can shut you down. We can block you. We can terrorize you. We can marginalize you. We can hurt you. We can block you from PayPal. We can block you block you from banks and MasterCard and all this. Why? Because of this story that's now unraveling. They said that Trump and Alex Jones and Roger Stone and all these people were creating this thing. Now they're saying, nope, there was no thing there because we're starting to get closer to the evidence to suggest that they may have had their own guys inciting these violence acts or very crucial roles. So they're saying, let's not look at this story anymore. Let's let this go away, please. If they spent less time doing these kind of shenanigans and more time actually trying to love their country in D.C., maybe we wouldn't have such a mess like we have today. If they were actually guided by love, they wouldn't have spent $2 trillion of your money lying to us about what was going on in Afghanistan so that they could enrich their friends who make money from the hurt and pain. That's the problem we have in this country. D.C. is not motivated by love. And that's what we need back. You love your family, you love your friends, you love your community, you love your place. And you should love yourself. That's why you should take care of yourself. You shouldn't let self-hatred ends up manifesting as what you see in Australia and New York and places like this, where you can't go outside, you can't go outside of your house. That's self-hatred in a culture that becomes law. It doesn't happen overnight. That happens because the society has been baked in self-hatred and self-abasement and self-flagellation. In some sense, what we see with all these lockdown stuff is that story of Jesus with the demoniac, the demon-possessed man who calls himself Legion. And what is it? He's walking around the tombs stoning himself. He has such self-hatred that he doesn't have to have the crowd stone him anymore. He cuts himself to hurt himself. And there's something going on with the West where we are in that moment of this Legion-like moment where we're self-stoning. It's like so many people, especially people who are fervent believers in the TV and the garbage trash that's obvious to most people, at least I hope most people, they're in a sense of self-stoning. If I put on 5 masks, if I keep my kid from having a normal social life and not allowing to see smiles at the playground, if I do this long enough, if I atone and self-flagellate long enough, somehow I will get rid of this guilt. But the only thing that can get rid of the guilt is the cross of Christ. Not 10 masks, not 7,000 booster shots later. None of that stuff will get rid of the guilt you have. You have to let go of it and throw it at the feet of the cross. I'm David Gronowski, back in a moment.
David Gronowski here. Let me tell you about a man named Gabriel. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals. Join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Cate. Personal injury law is definitive with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Cate will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Cate. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to CateCatania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Cate, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Cate, putting families first.
Office Tampa.
Not attorney spokeswoman.
Fighting high electricity bills in this heat? Call Insulation Plus of Tampa at 813-951-4374. Insulation Plus of Tampa will do a free 10-point attic inspection and show you how adding insulation and solar fans will lower the temperature, which helps your air conditioner work more efficient and last longer. Call today for your free attic inspection and get 10% off an attic solar fan and free attic stairway insulator. Call Insulation Plus of Tampa at 813-951-4374. That's 813-951-4374 and start saving money today.
Hello, this is David Gronoski with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a sixth-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR.
A Neighbor's Choice returns. We're live on radio. So we want to keep hearing from more folks who are stuck in these miserable failed states. In cities like San Francisco, they're going to do, you got to get both products, even though all their own media is coming out saying, no, these are not very effective against this new variant. Oh, they don't care. They're going to keep exploiting this crisis to get people submitted, because that's what human beings do when they're drunk with power, and they won't stop until you tell them to stop, until you do it with backbone and you expose it and you stop voting for these people and you use jury nullification to strike down their disgusting laws and you tell them to take a hike. You've got to stand your ground. You got to defend your family. They depend on you. Giovanni says, very well said. Sir, it says, I spoke to a restaurant owner here in India who said he won't take a jab. We must do something about the whiteness in him. Aussie girl says, all by design, creating division. Well, let us know what's going on in Australia. I'm sure that, they'll make the problem better. Any day now, they'll solve it. That's the problem. People think they're so sophisticated. Oh, I'm not religious. I'm not superstitious. And yet some sleazeball tells you can't drink a beer without a mask on. Some little weasel like that. And you say, yes, sir. What? There's nothing in ancient primitive religion that is compared to how stupid that is. Okay? Those guys are clowns. Why would you listen to those people? You've been indoctrinated for years and years and years that they're gods, but they're just little clowns. Embarrassing, unhealthy looking clowns. Little mumbling weasels. How much seed oil does that goofus eat every day? Telling you can't drink your drink in the park. Did you hear that other person in New Zealand saying you cannot even talk to people? Who's that? Who is that person? Is there any religion in ancient society that's dumber than the stuff they're saying? You cannot speak to anybody in the land. I am king. This dumb, primitive, barbaric, brutish, vulgar fools. They're going to be the biggest clowns. That's their reward. They're going to go down as the biggest clowns in history when this is all said and done. And they have to live with that because they sold out their own countrymen with such disgust. There's countries not in the West that actually have leaders that love their people. They may be crazy and violent too, but they actually love their people. These people in Australia and stuff, they hate their people. They have contempt for their people. It's absolutely embarrassing to watch these fools. Back in a moment.
The battle is just heating up.
If the hot summer sun doesn't heat you up,
it's time to turn the heat up on Congress.
Today's issues will.
I just don't understand.
We're in such trouble.
America should just wake up.
People need to see it.
The mainstream media and how it's out of control.
I don't get it.
So I think it's a conspiracy? No. This is payback.
This is our freedom. This is our life.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
Stay cool with us. News Talk 1040. WHBO.
President Biden pledging to get every American out of Afghanistan who wants to leave. General Hank Taylor on how they plan to do it.
We're looking at additional locations for these initial flights to land. We're grateful for our allies, including Germany, where flights will land today, who are cooperating with us in this global effort.
A North Carolina man who drove his pickup truck onto the sidewalk near the Library of Congress, claiming he had a bomb, has been ordered to undergo a mental competency hearing. The New York Times is reporting the FDA could approve Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine early next week. Hurricane watches are posted for Long Island and southern New England, with Tropical Storm Henri barreling toward the northeast.
National Guard has been activated. We're deploying utility crews and staging logistics in the event that trees fall on the MBTA track corridors or on major roads. But let's do our part to stay at home and out of the way if possible.
Massachusetts Transportation Secretary Jamie Tesler. GM recalling all Chevy Bolt electric vehicles. The battery can catch fire. Daria Albinger, ABC News.
News Talk 1040 Tampa.
Hey, Scott, we got you. We'll be going back live here in about another 2 minutes.
Brought to you by Insulation Plus of Tampa. Call Insulation Plus of Tampa at 813-951-4374 and save money today. We'll keep an eye out to the east for a 30% chance of widely scattered afternoon and evening storms today through Sunday. And we'll hot. High today, 93, 90 tomorrow, 93 on Sunday. The overnight lows is 79. I'm meteorologist Alan Archer for News Talk 1040 WHBO.
A Neighbor's Choice returns. I'm your host, David Gronowski. So glad to be live with you today here on this Friday. I hope you're doing well. Hope you're having a great time to enjoy life. I know that these fools that we live under like to lord over us, but we don't have to treat them like the little giants they want to be. They're gnats. They're gnats. Nature yawns at these people. They're here for just a moment. It's like vapor. So focus on the things that are more transcendent. Focus on the beauty around us. Life's beautiful moments. Nature. The transcendent glory of nature. The beautiful things of mysteries all around us. The things we learn with our family members and friends. Fishing. Going on a boat ride. Those are the things that matter. Don't let these people rob you of your joy. I know it's hard for folks in Australia. They can't even go outside or anything. The Aussie girl says, well, there was talk in Melbourne about us entering stage 5 restrictions, which means 1 kilometer. You can only go 1K from your home, shopping once a week. Good. What is going on in that poor place? I do think the Taliban has more freedoms than Australia gives. I think that's a clear fact now. I mean, they do some horrible, brutal things in Taliban world, but goodness gracious, they're certainly not that psychotic in that regard. Can't even go but once a week. It's the dumbest stuff I've ever heard. Well, joining me now, speaking of the Taliban, is our friend and foreign policy guy. We always love listening to him, Scott Horton. How you doing, Scott?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, Scott, you got what you wanted. You finally got a war ending. Are you happy now?
Well, kind of.
Well, good.
It's a bit of a relief, yeah. But no, I mean, on to Syria and Iraq, and especially Yemen, and also Somalia, where terrible American wars are still being fought. And all across Africa, for that matter, really.
So your work is never done, is it?
Well, then they got to pivot to China and to Russia and have a big arms build-up like it's the 1980s and Soviet communism is gobbling up the world. We have to face them down.
So I want to let's get the elephant off, and the elephant in the room analyzed. We've got this Afghanistan withdrawal. There's been a big striking moment. People are criticizing the way it was done. What's your take on that part of it?
Okay. Well, yes, the critics are right that Biden botched the withdrawal. And just to elaborate really quickly on that, which I think it is a side issue, just to be perfectly clear up front here. But on that subject, he broke the deal, or he bent the deal. The Trump deal was to have us out of the country by May the 1st. And that means that in order to live up to that, Biden would have had to call the Pentagon on the night of Inauguration Day and say, listen up, boys, I'm not changing my mind and I'm not stuttering. And I know you can hear me loud and clear. We are out by May 1st. Get it together. Don't drag it out. Don't slow walk it. It's on or you're fired. Read me loud and clear, over and out. And that's it. Anything less than that, and he is going to have a problem. And then, of course, that's what happened. So the military tried to slow walk it because they want him to change his mind. And I think probably, although I don't know this, but maybe I should just read the Washington Post more. Sorry. I think probably the Biden team wanted to take Trump's name off of it. It would be Biden's withdrawal. He would own it, and he would get the benefit of it, politically speaking. And he didn't want to have a legacy, really, of continuing anything that was what Trump did. I mean, at least not in name and for the public record. Obviously, he's doing a lot of the same things as Trump. But you know what I mean? He didn't want that to be the narrative. And so they kicked the can down the road, so we'll be out by September 11th, which that's terrible politics there. I don't know who came up with that. But anyway, out by the end of the summer, right? And so what happened was then they gave the Taliban started their takeover of the country on their own schedule. And they didn't delay for another few months. They went ahead, and it was the start of fighting season, and they went ahead and took advantage and went for it. So if the Biden government had stuck by the deal, they would have been gone before the Taliban's offensive even started. And so then they would have had what they called in the days of the end of the Vietnam War, the decent interval, where Americans have time to look away from the embarrassment before the government they left behind falls to the enemy. And so in this case, they botched that by extending the deadline for the withdrawal. And not only that, but of course, just in the order of operations of how you take care of things, they also, were in a position where they had to give up the Kandahar airfield and the Bagram Air Base, and they had to withdraw American combat forces. That was the deal. And they tried to say, okay, look, we're leaving 3,000 people at the embassy, and we're leaving about 600 troops behind, Marines and Army, to protect them. But that's all. But then what ended up happening, as everyone has seen, is they left all these weapons behind for the Afghan National Army. And for that matter, they left those 3,000 embassy employees on the presumption that the Afghan National Army is going to fight for this Kabul government that's to continue to exist, that we're going to continue to need, our this 3,000-man diplomatic and CIA, group to help protect and power for the medium-term future at least. They're predicting, well, Kabul might fall in a few months or maybe by the end of the year, but certainly not real soon. They thought they had their decent intervals still. But you see the rock and the hard place they were in there, right? Because if they had taken all those weapons and destroyed them, then they would be blamed for undermining the Afghan National Army and its failure, right?
Right.
And if they had pulled the embassy staff out of Kabul, they would have been blamed for sending the signal that they had no confidence at all in the Kabul government and causing it to fall for that reason. So unless they were willing, David, at the very beginning, to just tell the whole blatant, horrible, ugly truth that I am sorry, Charlie, the government we have built there is a farce, and the army we have built there is a joke. And therefore, our presidents and generals are liars. And where we truly are today is that if we leave our embassy staff there, they could have a hard time, which it turned out they didn't have too hard of a time. And if we leave all these weapons in the hands of the Afghan National Army, they're just going to end up in the hands of the Taliban. And that's the horrible, bitter truth. But you can imagine the temper tantrum the Hawks would have thrown and blame them for the loss of the army and the government for taking all the weapons away. So that was the position that they put themselves in, and they shouldn't have done that. Now, even though I just went on and on for 10 minutes about that, the real point is, who cares? The whole war has been an absolute catastrophe from beginning to end. Hundreds of thousands of people have been killed in this thing. And when I say killed, I mean their bodies blown apart to death. I mean people maimed in the most horrifying ways in a war that never should have happened at all. And in the scheme of things, this is just a blink of the eye in terms of catastrophes in Afghanistan going on from day to day to day for the last generation straight. And so if someone thought that after this complete and total catastrophe of a war was somehow going to be tied up with a nice little bow at the end, we weren't going to have some pathetic and ignominious retreat and fall of Saigon moment at the end, well, kind of how dare you be so ignorant about this war that we lost 10 years ago. This war that America's been fighting, but the American people, we don't even have to know the first thing about it. Is that the rule? Because if you knew the first thing about it, then you knew that this was going to happen now, or 10 years ago if we'd left 10 years ago, or 10 years from now if we left 10 years from now. And that's the fact. And you know what? One more thing before I stop rambling here. I'm proud of Donald Trump and Joe Biden for doing this. And Americans should all be grateful to them. And both of their approval ratings should go up. They should stop blaming each other and their stupid partisan hack partisans on either side should stop blaming the other guy. It's Bush and Obama who got us into this mess. And it's true that Trump did escalate the war, and horribly too, for a couple of years. But they really had a gun to his head. As close as you could get to that literally being true, they made him do that escalation in 2017. But then 1 year later, he mandated that Khalilzad sign us a deal and get us out of that country. And then Biden has now seen that through. And that makes them Trump the Great and Biden the Great, both for a couple of days anyway. And the fact that this bungling on the way out and some Humvees left behind and all that doesn't matter. And one more thing, I'm sorry, I should have said this at the beginning. The embassy staff, I did sort of mention this. The embassy staff got away clean, right? They were not machine gunned and mortared to death on the way to the airport. The Taliban has respected their ceasefire. I saw some reports, some claims that they were preventing Americans from getting out, but I think that's just hype. And the official pronouncements of all sides is that Americans anywhere in Afghanistan who want to travel to Kabul and get out of the country are more than welcome to. And I think part of it was people had fears. And when the Taliban came to town, it was going to be like Pol Pot in the Khmer Rouge, or it was going to be like ISIS taking over in western Iraq, where these bin Ladenites were just absolutely crazy in total chaos in 2014. But the Taliban are not exactly like that. They're conservatives, not radical rightists. And they clearly can live up to an agreement if they want to, and they have been.
Do you think that the military botched the exit to make Biden look bad? Because it's interesting. This is the first time we've seen the media actually turn its tone against Biden. They've been actually criticizing him on CNN, and it's almost like some people have suggested they're going to be loyal to Biden when it comes to Biden versus Trump land, but when it comes to Biden versus the perpetual expansion of, military spending, they're going to go with the higher power.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. But so two things. I mean, the first thing is, no, they didn't set him up to fail here deliberately. I don't believe. I mean, it's possible. I don't see any direct evidence of that. But what really was they were trying to set him up to stay. They were trying to convince him that we have to stay. And he was sticking by his gun, so they were slow walking the thing. And then that led to the delay. And that was what really set up the worst of the problems there. As I say, even with the delay, they could have made sure to get the civilians out first. And they could have tried to, get everybody out from Bagram, which has 2 big landing strips in which is nearby, and they could have done an easier job of this. And then the last man out is an armed combatant, is the last one to hop on the plane on the way out. So, there could have been, but again, just like every single bit of this war, every mission they went on, or I don't know, every single, individual mission a team went on, but every, strategy taken, in any particular part of the country at any time in the war, it was always a catastrophe. It was always just, led to worse consequences in the near-term future. So this is just another bad thing that happened there. But now, as far as the media turning on Biden, ladies and gentlemen, let us all be instructed by this most instructive moment here. We all can remember, because it was just a few years ago, when Donald Trump bombed Syria, and the media said, oh my God, we might love this guy after all. What a president. He became the president today, I think was Thomas Friedman in the New York Times, and Brian Williams on NBC, the Democrats, said, wow, look at the beauty of our cruise missiles firing away at night. And all of this, Biden actually, he did a wonderful thing because he bombed Syria over at a false flag terrorist attack, trying to get us to take the terrorist side over there. But luckily, limited strikes. But that was the only time they ever gave him the benefit of the doubt on anything. And now here, Biden gets nothing but the benefit of the doubt on every single thing in the whole wide world, except, oh my God, are you serious? You're really going to end a war? You can't be serious. You can't mean it. You're not really going to end the war. And if anybody has watched TV in the last couple of weeks and seen the press gaggles, whether they're harassing Biden or any of his principles about this, the premise of every question is essentially, but my Pentagon and CIA sources say that we got to stay. So how dare you contradict them, Mr. Elected Civilian Leadership of the country?
Right.
Just the same as under Trump. And so then the lesson is, well, whose side is the media on? The media is on the side of the Pentagon and the CIA, not necessarily the Democrats. It's not the liberal media. It's the military-industrial complex media. That's who they are. That's whose interests those people represent. And that's why they all agree on the most important thing, and that's why they always have the worst position on the most important thing, America's aggressive violence in other parts of the world.
Just to push back quickly, and we'll take a break, but
sure.
But how come they changed their tone so much with the Iraq war? I mean, at first they were doing the whole drumbeat, oh my goodness, look how amazing the bullets are and all this, but eventually they just went nasty as could be, and they sounded anti-war. What was going on there?
That's a good point, but remember how long eventually was, though? It wasn't until the summer of 2005. And every moment until the summer of 2005, the media was the cult of George W. Bush. Him and Cheney and Powell and Rice and Rumsfeld and Tenet, these are the most capable and competent and adult professional administrators in the history of the world. They know what to do. And if they say secular Saddam with the clean-shaven chin and the French Perret is in bed with Osama bin Laden, well, I guess we got to believe that, because these guys are the best guys that were ever a group of guys ever. Until New Orleans drowned in Hurricane Katrina. And then right there close to home, just a few hundred miles from where you live and a few hundred miles from where I live, people died. More than 1,000 people were drowning in New Orleans. For people unfamiliar, New Orleans is below sea level. So when the levee broke, the place flooded terribly and people were dying by the hundreds and hundreds. And the Bush government sat there and did nothing for 6 days straight. And the entire country was just pulling their freaking hair out and couldn't believe it. And finally, this religion of George W. Bush in the media was broken. And then they went along with promoting the Democrats and even promoting the anti-war movement, exploiting the heroic victim, Cindy Sheehan, whose son had been killed in the war, and exploiting her anti-war movement for to help the Democrats win back the House of Representatives. And then, of course, the war went on. Pelosi did nothing but give Bush a blank check to do whatever he wanted, and the war's been going on ever since then still. And so you're right about that much. But Meanwhile, 2 years before that, they had lied us into war.
Right.
They had claimed not just that they knew about these weapons, but that they assessed and believed that Iraq, that the sovereign government in Baghdad would give chemical weapons or even nuclear weapons, David, to Osama bin Laden to use, the same guy they had let escape in December of 2001. Oh, he's still out there somehow for some reason. And he might nuke you and your mama in your jammies in the middle of the night if we don't invade and stop him first.
Right.
And they were allowed to get away with that. He was reelected after that because the media would not confront him on the fact that that was a DAMN lie, and he knew it.
Very true. Let's take a quick break. We're speaking with Scott Horton of the Scott Horton Show, and we'll be analyzing the fallout. What comes next from the D.C. crowd? Are they going to learn? Are they going to be chastened? Are they going to swallow their pride? Are the American public going to continually put up with their next little schemes and wars? Scott mentioned some of them. We'll unpack that in just a moment when we return.
Who is your neighbor? Dave and Wally are team drivers for Oakley Transport. One day, they came across a very serious accident on the highway. Some might pass on by, but Dave and Wally saw there was no time to waste. They jumped into action and saved 2 people's lives with moments to spare. That's the kind of courageous love we need more of today. It reflects the respected culture Oakley Transport develops with their driving professionals. CDLA licensed drivers. Join Oakley Transport today for a rewarding career. Visit oakleytransport.com. That's oakleytransport.com.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Cate. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Cate will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Cate. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to CateCatania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Cate, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Cate, putting families first.
Office Tampa.
Not attorney spokeswoman.
Hello, this is David Gronowski with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a 6th-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR.
Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gronowski here with Scott Horton as we reflect on the fallout of the Afghanistan war ending. Joseph on our comments says, prior to 2001, the phrase weapons of mass destruction was never used. Certainly wasn't used in a mainstream context that I heard. Scott, so when we see, a lot of people are saying if Mark Milley cared, the headline in Washington Examiner, if only Milley cared less about critical race theory and more about Afghanistan, in terms of being, considerate about what you're actually doing. Where do you see this headed? Do you think that there's going to be an expansion of China into that region to try to make itself more powerful? Or are they going to take a more subtle approach? Or what do you think is going to happen here?
The Chinese, you say?
Yes.
I don't think that they could possibly be dumb enough to replicate the Soviet Union and America's failure in Afghanistan in trying to send in armed forces to have anything to do with that country at all. If they follow their program of the last 20 years, they'll be sending little guys with briefcases around to make investments, and probably some of them bad investments backed by, government inflation and guarantees and these kinds of things. But the reality is the security situation in Afghanistan, it remains to be seen. But let's just say for the last 40 years straight, there's never been a time where it would have made sense, certainly for a private entrepreneur or corporation, but even including a sovereign national government with a printing press, to try to invest in building any kind of serious mining industry in that country at all. Because how could you? The country's the size of Texas. It's the same reason we lost the war. It's the size of Texas. It's landlocked behind not just Pakistan, but a gigantic mountain range, which means you have to go, to get from Afghanistan out to the sea, you got to go through the Khyber Pass and then all the way down to the port of Karachi, which everybody grab a map and look at why that's difficult and expensive. And then it's got mountains like Colorado, and it's got deserts like California, and armed population of, people who don't like foreigners and will fight, especially against armed forces, but, still overall, that's the sentiment. And there's so many different separate armed factions that essentially, don't you expect that there will be some kind of even extremely but low-level civil war going on kind of from now on? And the Taliban have bitten off the whole country right now, almost. Well, let's see if they can chew it. But even then, by the way, I would be neglecting my role here if I didn't mention that this is why Bill Clinton's government supported the rise of the Taliban in the first place in the 1990s, in cooperation with the Saudis and the Pakistanis. And they didn't want the Taliban to come to a negotiated settlement with the Northern Alliance either. They wanted them to, the Clinton government wanted the Taliban to defeat them outright. That way, they could guarantee that they could provide security so that the American corporation Unocal could try to build an oil pipeline from Turkmenistan across Afghanistan and through the mountains and down to the port of Karachi. And of course, it was always a pipe dream, and I see no reason to think that the Chinese would think that they'll have an easy time of scraping minerals out of that ground for the cost.
Well, we're out of time, but Aaron asks, is armed conflict with China the next shoe to drop? And I'll add to that, what do you see the D.C. establishment putting their focus on now in their regime change meddling?
Well, it's China and Russia both, and let's hope it stays at nothing worse than Cold War, which is horrible and bad enough.
Yeah, where are those UFOs when you need them to shut down all those nuclear silos, huh? Goodness.
Exactly. Superman 4, where are you?
Well, Scott, I really appreciate having you on, and it's a bittersweet moment because you have been a voice in the wilderness, staying on this topic for so long, and now it's come somewhat to an end, I guess, and we, it's just a shame, the folly of human beings. They can't learn from history. And the only lesson we can learn is to not give them this kind of power in the first place. That's the only thing I can learn.
Yep. Agree with that.
I want people to check out your new book, Enough Already, Time to End the War on Terrorism. You said, where are the other spots where this war on terrorism is still going?
Syria, Iraq, Somalia, and Yemen.
Well, we'll leave it.
And all across Africa.
Right. Well, I want to dive into the Africa part sometime with you in a future episode, okay?
Anytime, happy to.
A lot of people don't know about what's going on with that at all.
Antiwar.com every day, folks.
Yeah,
that's with your breakfast.
Yeah, antiwar.com is a great website, great resource. So thanks again for joining us, Scott.
So happy to do it, David.
I'm David Gornosky. If you have any questions or comments or guest suggestions, you can email me hello@aneighborschoice.com. Godspeed.